Hey, what's up, y'all? It's me, Nate Almighty, and I'm back with another Power Book Full Force Season 3 Theory and Prediction video. The topic of today's video is we're going to be doing a ghetto reaction to Movie Bot. This title of his latest video is Bloodbath Ending Death Predictions, Power Book Full Force Season 3. Let's see what the brother has to say. Go ahead, like, share, comment, subscribe if you're new here, because this video is going to be another banger. Without further ado, let's get to it.
We get what we can now, we take the rest later. We play the long game. My man King used to say, every good lie is veiled in the truth. This Chicago, these our streets.
Death predictions, characters ending up in jail, or what rarely happens in the world of power, characters riding off into the sunset, or rather having to leave because they've lost everything, lost loved ones, lost their family, business, and friends. That's the topic of today's breakdown, because I do think there will be a very mixed ending for a lot of these characters. I think a lot will end up dead, but I do think a few will end up in prison, and a few will end up escaping. In the sense, they leave Chicago, or are forced to leave Chicago. Gary Lennon's already teased there are a lot of ways this could actually play out. So
yeah, there's a lot going on. There's going to be a lot going on this season. I believe this season is going to blow season 2 and especially season 1 out of the water. But what do you think in the comment section? How good do you think season 3 is going to be?
We're going to be looking at death predictions across the board for the final season, of course. Now that they've given us a lot to work with in terms of interviews from Gary Lennon and Joseph Sikora, we are still in for a lot more interviews, and I'm expecting them to be released more closer to 7th of November. But now that we've got some information from Gary Lennon and Joseph Sikora, now that we've seen the official trailer, along with a few more teasers that have been floating around, I do think it's the perfect time to discuss who dies, who survives, who goes to prison, and who could be leaving Chicago. So let's dive into some death predictions, starting with the funeral scene that we saw in the official trailer, who I personally believe is JP.
It's definitely JP, man. JP's out of here. JP's out of here. He's going to gay heaven, man. He's going to LGBTQ heaven, man.
Now, before the trailer was released, Gary Lennon did mention there would be something that would bring Tommy Egan to his knees. Lo and behold, we actually saw that moment in one of the teasers that was recently released. And it's probably the moment where Tommy gets the call that JP is gone. And based on everything else that we've seen in the trailer, he is 100% on my death predictions list going into the last season. And he is high on the list for a number of reasons. I do think Tommy will eventually win this war in Chicago. However it pans out, whoever the alliances and coalitions are with, whatever happens with Maria, Miguel Garcia, the Marquez cartel, the CBI, eventually I do think Tommy will be the one who comes out on top. But we know in power there is always a cost.
He's going to come out on top because of plot armor, of course. So, of course, he going to win in the end. But he going to lose because he got to leave.
There is always a price that needs to be paid by the time you become the king. We can go all the way back to scenarios such as Tommy and Ghost.
End of the day, we can expect Tommy to be leaving Chicago, but possibly still getting some kind of money. Or he going to get plugged into another situation outside of Chicago type shit.
In Breeze, he was a sacrifice. After Breeze, Ghost sent Kane into prison. Along the way, they've also lost countless of loved ones, business associates, and partners. For example, Tommy lost Liliana in season 1. People just get caught in the crossfire when things get really heated in the moment. And you can be damn sure it's going to be like that in season 3 of course. Tommy may get the win, he may eventually win the war, but at what cost? Who will he lose in the process? That's number 1. Number 2. I do think after the trailer and a couple of teasers, if anybody had any doubt that this was JP, I do think a few of these scenes do paint the picture. I have recently been rewatching Force, and I actually thought for a second whether this could actually be JP's father's funeral, but he was non-existent in season 2, and I don't think he's actually a character to make such a fuss over. I don't think he's someone who would, in essence, bring Tommy to his knees. You've got DMac who also looks upset, and behind him you can see pictures of him and JP. You zoom into the funeral scene, it does also look like Kate speaking at the front.
Yes, JP's gonna die. Okay. He's definitely gonna die. He's going to gay heaven. I said that.
So I do think all signs do point towards JP being the one. Number 3. JP's death really would set off DMac, not just in Force, but in my opinion, what's to come after, which is Legacy. I do think DMac does cross over with Tommy and Tariq. We've all had the bits of Tommy mentoring him through mentioning Kanan. He's going to be teaching him what Kanan once taught him when he was DMac's age. And I do think if JP is no longer in the picture, it means Tommy's just going to have to look after him even more. He's going to have to take him under his wing. He's going to have to guide him and mentor.
Yes, Tommy's taking DMac wherever he goes because he knows DMac chose the streets. So since he made that clear choice, right, he's going to see even more of himself in DMac than Tariq. He gonna feel like DMac is even more serious than Tariq was. Anywhere Tommy goes, he's taking DMac.
For him. So you've got all of these narrative and reasons just kind of pointing in the direction of JP. But let's go a little deeper and ask the question, if and when we do see JP's death, who pulls the trigger? If I were to put money on anybody killing JP, at this moment in time, especially after freshly rewatching season 1, if I were to put any money on any character at this moment in time, it just simply has to be Jernard. He was borderline obsessed with Tommy in season 1. He really did want Tommy's head on a spike. The way Jernard was behaving and moving behind Tommy's back even reminded me a lot of how Kane was with Tariq. I can see a scenario where Jernard makes the call behind Diamond's back and goes straight for Tommy. He either kills JP in cold blood, or it's a scenario where he thinks he's shooting at Tommy, but instead he kills JP. I personally don't believe these moves that Jernard is...
I disagree. The reason why I disagree and I say it's not going to be Jernard is for the simple fact that Jernard's still alive. When they had the character who played Jernard, then they had Joseph Sikora, they had Giovanni, right? They had Michael Rainey Jr., they had the girl that plays damn, I forgot. The Tejada, Diana. All of them was together, talking about something coming down in the future. Diamond was not there. Jernard was there. It cannot be him. Unless Jernard kills him and nobody knows. And he still rides out with Tommy in the end. But I don't see it happening that way. How would Tommy not figure that out?
Making is going to be in full agreement with Diamond. Diamond is an OG. He has certain ways of doing things. And I think when it comes to Tommy and the organization, they are probably going to clash. And I do think he's probably going to piss Jernard up to the point where he does take shit into his own hands. Again, going back to season 1, that's exactly what he did. Jernard can be very emotional, rash, angry, and aggressive. And we all know when you mix all of them together, you do end up making a...
Well, I don't want it to be Jernard, but if it's Jernard, whatever. But it don't make sense for that to be him.
A lot of mistakes and making some bad calls. So I do have JP high up on my death predictions list, and I do have Jernard pulling the trigger, which would also probably cement his fate as well. But when we get to the CBI section, I am going to run through a scenario where I do think he could end up in jail, but more on that later on.
Did he not see the clips that we saw? Did you not see the clip that we saw?
Moving away from JP, the other family members that Tommy has in Chicago are Kate and DMac. With DMac, I do think he is a character who will survive. I think he's someone who's got a lot more to give, not just in for season 3, but in the kind of wider Power universe. He's definitely got a lot more to learn, and he's someone who I can see teaming up with Tommy and Tariq in Legacy later on.
Yup. And what we need to see is, we need to see DMac deal with an inferiority complex with Tariq around the same way that Tommy dealt with it with Ghost. And we need to see DMac beefing with Tariq at some point. Even if they squash in the future. We just need that. Maybe he'll be the one to finally shoot Tariq, since Tariq never got shot before.
I think he can go a long way with someone like Tommy as a mentor. So for me, DMac definitely survived. With Kate, again, she's a power OG. Personally, I don't have her on my death predictions list. I personally don't think she's going to die in season 3. But if you really wanted to hit the power audience with someone unexpected, then Kate would be that character. I just think Tommy's going to do everything in his power to protect his family. Especially after going through this. There's no way he lets anything happen to DMac and Kate. Even though we know their relationship isn't exactly the best, Kate is still Kate. She's a power OG. And I personally think by the time season 3 comes to an end, Tommy will have probably set her up just before he moves on.
Yeah. He gonna give us some bread. He gonna be like, yo, mom, go over here. Maybe put her in a gated community or something in Chicago. You might mom go over here.
So, speaking of moving on, let's move on with our death predictions over to the Flynn's. Now, going back to another quote from Gary Lennon, he did say that I'm a big believer in ending seasons and ending episodes with a question. Are we So,
Can't teach that shit, nigga. Come on. That's gotta get that. That's touch my ink. That's on the dome, nigga.